You know that moment when you walk into a meeting and can immediately sense the mood that is in the room? Or when a proposal looks perfect on paper, but something just feels off? That's your intuition working, and it's more sophisticated than most people realize. Every leader has experienced this, sensing which team member to approach with a sensitive request before you're consciously analyzing the personalities involved, or knowing a client is about to object even when they haven't voiced concerns. Feeling that a project timeline is unrealistic before you've done the detailed math. That instinctive awareness isn't luck or magical insight. It's your brain rapidly processing patterns, your experiences, and all of the environmental cues that you're sensing in the meeting or in the emails or that Zoom call. The leaders known for amazing judgment haven't been blessed with superior gut feelings. They've learned to systematically enhance this natural capability through what I call practical thinking. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the science behind intuitive judgment, why some people seem to have consistently better instincts, and how you can use practical thinking skills to make your own intuition more reliable and actionable. So, what is it? Well, intuition is your brain's rapid processing of experiences, patterns, and the environmental cues that occur below the level of a conscious awareness. You're not even really aware of it. When you sense the mood in a room, your mind is instantly analyzing dozens of subtle signals in body language, tone of voice, seating arrangements, who's speaking, and who's staying quiet. This isn't mystical, it's sophisticated pattern recognition. Your brain has stored thousands of similar situations and can quickly compare current circumstances to your past experiences, delivering a gut feeling about what's likely to happen or what approach will work with this. Everyone has this capability. You use it constantly. You walk into that meeting and immediately sense the mood in the room. Is the boss mad? Is everybody happy? Everybody have a great weekend? Whatever it is. Next, knowing which team member to approach with a request. Some team members are easier to approach than others. Some will react and respond depending on what the ask is, and you don't even think about it. You go, oh, Bob will be the best person for me to talk to about this. How about that feeling that a project timeline is just unrealistic before you even done the analysis, before you even looked at it? You just look at it and you go, wow, that is just not a realistic approach. Or how about recognizing when a client's about to say no, even if they haven't said it yet? Or sensing that a proposed solution won't work within your company culture. The difference between people who with great intuition and everybody else is not the quality of their initial gut feelings. It's how they systematically or how they put together a system that they use to validate, to investigate, and act on those insights. So, the leaders who are known for excellent judgment have developed what I call practical thinking. This is that systematic approach to using their knowledge and experience to enhance their intuitive insights. Now, here's what they do differently. They treat gut feelings as valuable data, not emotions that dismiss or blind impulses to follow. When something feels off, they investigate systematically rather than ignoring a signal or acting without validation. These same leaders, they've learned to distinguish between intuition based on genuine patterns and reactions driven by personal bias, by your stress, your recent events, your mood. They can separate this timeline feels aggressive because similar projects have failed from this timeline feels aggressive because I'm overwhelmed today. Two different responses, and they're aware of both. They know how to control that and apply it. Now, they apply a structured approach to validate these intuitive insights before making any kind of an important decision. They don't just trust their gut, and they use their gut for a starting point for this investigation. Now, leaders also they understand stakeholder psychology at a deeper level, using that intuitive read of people to design approaches that work with human nature rather than against it. The leaders with reputations for just absolutely brilliant intuition have simply learned to make their natural pattern recognition more reliable, more actionable through these systematic frameworks. So, systematically, and not just systematically, it's really the way to do this quickly in the moment because your gut is driving you to make a decision. Now, practical thinking is this systematic approach to using your knowledge and experience to validate, investigate, and effectively implement your intuitive insights, not just react. It transforms valuable gut feelings into consistently reliable judgment. Think of intuition as your brain's early detection system and practical thinking as the methodology for investigating and acting on those systems with a step by step systematic approach. For instance, your intuition signals, hey, this reorganization plan feels wrong. Now, practical thinking investigates. You should be asking yourself, well, what are the specific elements I'm reacting to? Is this a timeline, the stakeholder alignment assumptions, or is it the communications approach? Your intuition warns you this customer seems hesitant despite saying yes. Your practical thinking explores it. You ask yourself, what might they be worried about that they just can't voice directly? How can I address these real concerns? Ask yourself. Your intuition detects something like, oh, this team's meeting feels really tense. Your practical thinking skill examines that by asking what underlying conflicts or pressures might be driving this dynamic. What does each person need to have to feel successful? Now, when you combine intuitive insights with systematic investigation frameworks, you develop judgment. Judgment that gets more accurate with your experience. This is how great leaders seem to just know what will work. And they've learned to systematically validate and act upon the patterns their intuition detects. So let's talk about the practical thinking framework. The framework consists of three interconnected skills that transforms your natural intuitive insights into reliable decision making capabilities. Unlike analytical approaches that ignore gut feelings or emotional approaches, such as divergent thinking or convergent thinking, um, these follow. Those tend to follow instincts and follow them blindly. Practical thinking creates a systematic bridge between your intuitive awareness and effective action. The power comes from combining all three skills. Most people excel at like one or two, but miss this integration that makes intuitive judgment consistently something you can rely on. So, in this framework for the three steps, let's talk about step one, reality recognition. Reality recognition. This is different from problem definition. So, what is it? Use your intuitive insights to see situations as they actually exist, not as org charts or frameworks suggest they should be. So, why does this matter? Your gut feelings often detect mismatches between official reality and actual reality. Most decision failures happen because people address the stated situation rather than the real situation. How do you apply this? Start with your intuitive read of what's really happening. Map all the stakeholders who will actually be effective, including informal influencers. Identify what information is missing and why it might be missing. Acknowledge constraints and pressures that are not officially discussed. And recognize the emotional political landscape your intuition is detecting. So, example in action. Your gut says a reorganization plan just won't work, even though it looks logical on paper. So, this reality recognition helps you investigate. Your intuition is detecting that the timeline is too aggressive for this culture. Key influencers were not consulted, and the plan ignores current team load, workload realities. Your gut feeling was accurate. It sensed the gap between the plan and actual organizational dynamics. This is some of the common mistakes in this is dismissing gut feelings because the official version looks reasonable. You're looking at what the official version is and what reality is. And that's where your gut really kicks in. It really steps in and says, something is off. How do I deal with this? So, step 2 of the framework, experience application. Experience application. This is not best practices research. So, what is it? Use your knowledge of similar situations and these specific stakeholders to adapt your approach rather than applying generic solutions. So, why does this matter? Your intuition draws on your unique experiences with these people, this culture, this organization, this team, and these types of challenges. That contextual knowledge is more valuable than best practices from some other organization, or God forbid, some list of actions that you got from one of your AI tools, ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever, right? This is what you have experienced, what your intuition is telling you. How do you apply it? Draw on similar situations you've navigated with these stakeholders. Consider what you know about this culture and how this culture responds to change. Apply lessons from previous successes and failures in this environment. Adapt proven approaches to fit current personalities and constraints. And most importantly, trust your experience about what will and what will not work with these specific people. So, how does this example look in real life, in action? Your intuition suggests that a client is hesitant about a proposal, despite their positive words. Your experience helps you investigate. You remember that this client typically asks for detailed implementation questions when they're serious, but they haven't asked any. So, what your experience with them suggests, they're worried about execution complexity, but don't want to seem unsophisticated. You adapt by proactively addressing implementation support rather than pushing for a decision. Now, this one has a common mistake that a lot of people make, researching what worked elsewhere instead of applying what you know about this specific context. Again, trust your experience. Weave that in as your intuition, but then apply practical thinking to analyze it. Step back and think about it, not just react to the emotion. Step 3 in the framework, stakeholder psychology reading. Stakeholder psychology reading. This is not stakeholder management. This is different. It decodes what people really need and fear versus what they say they need, and then design approaches that align with their actual psychology. Why does this matter? Most initiatives fail not because of logic or resources, but because they clash with stakeholders' deeper motivations, fears, or unspoken constraints that no one addresses directly. So how do you apply it? Listen for what people do not say, the concerns they avoid mentioning. Notice emotional patterns, enthusiasm that feels forced, or agreement that just comes way too quickly. Identify hidden incentives, what each person needs to succeed in their role, and recognize fear patterns, what failure or change would mean for each stakeholder personally. And then design solutions that make people look good to their bosses, not just solve the stated problem. Remember, everybody has a boss. Part of your role, if you're going to be a leader and drive change, is to help your stakeholders look good to their bosses. So here's an example. A department head enthusiastically supports your efficiency initiative in meetings, but your gut says they're not really on board. So, as the psychology reading reveals, they're actually worried that improved efficiency will make their large team look unnecessary, threaten their status and their job security. Instead of focusing on efficiency benefits, maybe you should reframe the initiative as expanding their team's capabilities and strategic value. This transforms resistance into genuine partnership. The key insight here, while others try to convince stakeholders with better arguments, practical thinkers recognize that people's real decisions are really driven by emotions, incentives, compensation, title, prestige, and fears that are rarely discussed openly as anything that threatens those. They design solutions that address the psychology realities. If you're going to apply practical thinking, you've got to design it for the reality that's happening. Be practical, not just the stated requirements, but understand what's happening underneath. And a common mistake here is focusing on logical persuasions, thinking that you can outthink and outlogic somebody, when stakeholders are really driven by emotional or political concerns they can't voice directly, either out of true fear or seeming and admitting that they're very vain and they want the decision to help promote them. But the reality is that's how decisions are made. They're made by the emotions. So you got to develop your practical thinking skills. We've given you the three elements. Here's a 30-day practical thinking challenge for you to work on and improve your practical thinking skills. Week 1, reality recognition. Practice, start documenting your gut feelings about situations and meetings. Write them in your journal, write them in your book, write them on your Remarkable. However, you take meeting notes, put a column over there and think about, am I really perceiving this as the stated official issues, or do I really understand the reality? And when something feels off, practice investigating what your intuition might be detecting. You got to tune that flag so when it goes up, you're listening. What mismatches, and this is a key one, what mismatches exist between official reality and actual reality? Are your gut picking up on? That's week 1. Week 2, this is the experience application. For each significant decision you face, consciously apply your experience with these specific people and situations. Think about it. Here's your gut reaction. What have I experienced with this people? What have I experienced in this situation? Instead of researching best practices and running off to your AI chatbot, ask yourself, what do I know from previous similar situations with these specific stakeholders that should guide my approach on this? Week 3, psychology reading. Practice reading stakeholder psychology by listening for what people do not say. And again, Keep track, document this, and just write in there with all of your meeting notes. When someone agrees quickly or shows unexpected enthusiasm, ask yourself, what might they be worried about that they can't voice? Design small experiments to test your psychological reads. This, when people ask me about my career and what were my key skill sets, a lot of people think I talk about technology or my ability to predict the future. All it's stakeholders and understanding the psychology, whether I'm talking to CEOs, board of directors, clients, it's this ability to do psychological reads. Now we've done the 3 steps. Week 4, this is integrating the entire framework. Combine all 3 steps for important decisions. Start with your intuitive read. This is your reality recognition. Is my intuition picking up something where there's a disconnect between what the official reality is being stated versus the actual reality? So apply then your contextual experience, your experience application. Then design approaches that address stakeholder psychology. This is the psychology reading. Track when this systematic approach improves your outcomes. Again, keep it literally side by side in your journal or in your notes from meetings. So now you can practice this with others. Share your intuitive insights with trusted colleagues and walk through your practical thinking process. Explain why you're getting a practical gut feeling, often reveals additional insights and can help validate or improve your team's approach. So, what are some of the success indicators? You'll know your practical thinking skills are enhancing your intuition when your gut feelings become more accurate, when stakeholders volunteer information they usually keep hidden, and when your solutions work better because they align with how people actually think and actually behave. So, so your intuition is already providing sophisticated insights about stakeholder dynamics, organizational realities, and what will actually work in practice. The challenge is in developing better gut feelings. It's learning to systematically validate and act on the insights you are already receiving. Practical thinking does not replace your natural judgment. It makes it more reliable, more explainable to others, and more actionable in complex situations. When you can read reality accurately, apply your experience systematically, and understand the stakeholder psychology, you develop the type of judgment that improves every decision you are making. This is the foundation of decision thinking, the approach for effective decisions when information is incomplete, stakeholders have conflicting interests, and the stakes are high for you and your organization. Practical thinking helps you leverage your natural capabilities to navigate complexity that would overwhelm purely analytical approaches. It may be overwhelming you with pressure and stress. You already have sophisticated pattern recognition and stakeholder awareness. Practical thinking helps you turn those natural capabilities into systematic competitive advantages. So, ready to develop reliable practical thinking? Join our community of leaders in Substack chat, where we will be exploring this question this coming week. What is one situation where you had a strong gut feeling that something was off, but you did not trust it enough to investigate and later wished you had? So, this is a little bit of a look back and ask you, what if you had reacted? You knew something was off, your gut was off, but it just did not work out. So, now coming up in the next episode, I'm going to be applying kind of some of the challenges with this intuition and practical thinking to a real example. In this case, it was an HP fossil watch partnership. And how could have we challenged Apple's dominance in the smartwatch market? Fossil's Bill Geiser's intuition about Apple entering wearables was dead on accurate. My assessment of the platform shift was equally accurate, but intuition without the decision making frameworks to act on it just becomes expensive foresight. It'll show you how two Fortune 500 giants chose comfort over courage. So you want to make sure to stay around. Share this episode with someone who has great instincts but struggles to act on them systematically. You'll be helping them turn natural judgment into reliable leadership. And with that, don't forget, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, as that helps us with the algorithm and helps others see and hear about the show and today's content. Greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, and we'll be back with you next week. Bye-bye.